Hello, everyone. We are back with Cars Casually. We have Chris, we have Paulo, we have Gerard, or G, sorry, and we have someone you can't see behind him, and we have me, Carl. Today we are talking about, okay, this started off as what we get annoyed about in cars, but we didn't like that because it was kind of negative. So instead, we're going to talk about what is in cars that we do or do not need and why is it there. Sometimes we see things and we don't understand why they're there. My favorite example of this is Volvo footwells, because I know people who have complained that Volvos are luxury cars. Why do they have small footwells? And I asked Volvo, and Volvo said, "Would you rather have air or metal protecting your feet?" Okay, so we don't actually know. There was a time when a foreigner kept asking me, why do I have to park my car nose forward? It makes no sense. I said, so they don't have to keep repainting the wall. So a lot of these things, there is a reason for. And we're going to segue quickly into child seats because apparently Chris has some really heavy opinions. We were going to start on things like sunroofs and fog lights and so on. But no, we're going to go with Chris's heavy opinions on child seats. This is because child seats have suddenly come into focus, which is a good thing. We have been a proponent of them for a very long time. We have given them away. We have promoted them like crazy. We think they're important. And the answer, my yaya can just carry the baby, does not fly anymore. Chris has an opinion on how it's being handled, positive opinion, which is good because most people don't. Chris, child seats, let's go.
Yeah, we're on the topic of things that we think are unnecessary in cars, right? Apparently, a lot of people are now complaining about a new law that was not signed because it was actually signed in 2019. It's only being implemented today. It's funny how people are only complaining about it today when it was actually signed into a law 2 years ago. But anyway. The reason why people are making a big fuss about it is because a lot of media outlets are actually misinterpreting what is stated in the law. What the media is saying is that there is an age and height requirement for having to use a child seat, when honestly the only requirement is based on height, not really age. So if I were to read exactly what was written, okay, it says it shall be unlawful for the driver of a covered vehicle not to properly secure at all times a child. That's fine. In a child restraint system, aka child seat, while the engine is running or transporting such child on any road, street, or highway. Now, here's the important part. It says, unless the child is at least 150 centimeters or 59 inches in height and is properly secured using the regular seatbelt. So, what the law is actually saying is you need to use a child seat if your child is below 150 centimeters or 59 inches, which is, I think, 4'11".
Yeah.
The child restraint system shall be appropriate to the child's age, height, and weight. Fine, that's reasonable. And approved in accordance with Section 6 of this Act. The requirements of this section shall not apply to circumstances where the child restraint system would put the child in greater danger, such as medical emergencies, there's a developmental condition, or other analogous circumstances prescribed under the implementing rules and regulations. Okay, so basically what they're saying is, like I said, the child seat law is required for children that are under a certain height. It doesn't matter if it means, in other words, it won't apply if your child is 5'4" but 10 years old. Some people think that's the case. Like, what if I have a giant 10-year-old? He's like 5'5". No, then you don't have to. The regular seatbelt is fine. That the only reason this law is being implemented is because seatbelts safely function at a person's certain height. So you can get injured using a seatbelt if you are below a certain height. That's just the way seatbelts are designed. And that's how they have been all this time. So this is just another safety measure to make sure that kids don't get injured when an accident happens and they're using a regular seatbelt. So if they are 4'11" or under, then they do need to be on a child seat or a booster seat because they do have the proper harnesses and the proper straps to keep you safe when an accident happens. Now, the the other section to this law, which I think where people get confused, is children in rear seats. Now, it says no child 12 years old and below shall be allowed to sit in a front seat of a motor vehicle with a running engine or while such child is being transported on any road, street, or highway, unless the child meets the height requirement set forth in Section 4. So, again, this states that kids are not allowed to sit in front with a seatbelt since you can't really put a child seat in the front. They have to add this to the law. If you're 12 years and below, you can't sit in the front. But again, it says here, unless the child meets the height requirement set forth in Section 4. So, the way this is being reported now, maybe on purpose or maybe they're confused as well, I'm not sure. They make it sound like it's a height and age requirement when in reality it is purely a height requirement. It's very clear that it says unless the child meets the height requirement. So there you go. I mean, and I think that the child seats are incredibly important.
I agree.
They definitely serve a purpose. And you know, the people that are saying I can just put the kid on my yaya's lap, that doesn't fly. That is the same as saying I'm sitting in the back, I don't need a seatbelt. You know,
Yep.
it's the same thing as that. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I'm in the back, I don't need to put a seatbelt. No, I mean,
No. You'll see people go from the back
It's
through the
even
Yeah.
worse. Yeah, it's even worse.
I have seen terrible accidents where people are flung out the side windows. They're flung straight through into the front windshield, even though they're back. They hit the seat, and the seat breaks off, and the passenger in that front seat is the one that gets flung out. You know, stuff like that. It's terrible.
No, and even
So
even hitting the seat itself is already, it can injure them severely. In fact, that's why
yeah,
Mercedes put out the rear airbags in the new S class because of that.
yeah,
Really?
Yep.
Okay. One quick point, Chris. Awesome points. I was not as familiar with this issue as you are. Obviously, you have kids, and it's a key point for you. So yes, given what we're seeing, it does look like people are sensationalizing a lot of this. Everything that you have said to me, from a technical point of view,
yeah,
makes complete sense if you understand what's needed.
yeah. It's
The
very
seatbelts
reasonable.
themselves can cause, if the child is too small and the seatbelt is up here or here, it
Yeah.
can hurt the child. If the child is in the front seat, the timing of the airbag can harm or kill the child, not save the child. They are addressing that. There are weight sensing seatbelts. There are ways for you, weight sensing airbags, and there are ways for you to turn off the airbag when you make that conscious decision. What I thought was actually insightful was they said this will not apply during emergencies. This will not
Yeah.
apply, and this was a really, really good one. This will not apply when there are developmental issues.
Yeah.
That would never have been put into any sort of writing 10 years ago. That's very important because if you are transporting a child that, for whatever reason, cannot handle that, you have to make allowances. So I actually, honestly, this is a good thing, and people don't realize how important child seats are. And they're talking about it. It is just a booster sometimes, And there's also the thing where some people agree or disagree with this, but there's something that repositions. It tightens up the seatbelt, which, in other words, moves the belt by the neck down, right? It
Yeah.
positions it lower, so that makes it safer.
Yeah.
So thank you for not making this sensationalized, Chris. Thank you for being intelligent about it.
Well, I can see why people are up in arms about it now. It's simply because they don't fully understand what's being stated. And
Yeah, but they're reacting to Facebook posts and they're reacting to all this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what people are doing.
You know,
They're
do
you're
your
looking at-
homework.
you're looking at what people are sharing on
Yeah.
Facebook, but they're not actually reading the law.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
and
you
you
can
can see
talk-
memes going around of people like with giant kids, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, my kid is 5'5", and he's like 11. What now? What now? And they show pictures of the kid, like his head is almost touching the roof of the car. Yeah, so it's a height requirement, not an age requirement. So
So they want attention, not intelligence. Well, that's their thing. No, but Chris, thank you very much. We are so impressed with you that we're going to put your address on screen now.
let's not do that.
Let's not do that. Okay. Chris Van Hoven. Okay. No, awesome. These are things that we never and looking at what they said, this basically just follows exactly what the manufacturers say, what other countries say to an extent. I mean, we have to obviously go further into this to responsibly discuss it, right? But if you are reading exactly what the law says, let's not react. Let's understand.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we actually started on things like cigarette lighters. Are they needed, right? Cigarette lighters and cartons.
Now
are
that
they
we've
needed
got
or
that
not?
out of the way, now that we got that out of the way,
Gotta
The lighter stuff.
system.
we're really here to talk about stuff that we find are unnecessary in cars, in modern cars at least. We actually saw a photo of a Volkswagen in 1959 with a coffee maker in the attached to the dashboard. So, I think that's necessary.
So do I. I agree completely with that one.
I don't know why that was ever phased out. I think a coffee machine built into the car would be awesome. But yeah, one of the things that we thought would be unnecessary in cars, in modern cars at least, is a sunroof. I mean, a sunroof, I never saw a purpose for it besides sticking your hand out once in a while, or going like sticking your head out and going
Yeah, once in
woohoo. But yeah, I mean, do you guys see why people love sunroof so much? I mean, I guess it does give the car a better.
Or, more lighting, but
It gives it an illusion of space, I guess. Like you're wide open. You don't feel so closed in. You don't feel like you're in a prison. But I mean, is it necessary? If we're talking about reducing a car's cost by 50,000 pesos, would you rather have the sunroof or would you take the 50,000 discount?
I take the 50K.
I get the 50K.
Honestly, no question. Because
Okay,
I
I obsessed about sunroofs until I had one.
The-
car?
Then after that, I found that I didn't use them, and it was hotter there than I expected. It was hotter in the front seat than the back seat.
More heat that
what
comes
car
in.
was that?
My first sunroof might have been the Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Mhm.
It might have been one of the second gen, no, first gen Santa Fe's. Might have been. Prior to that, well, I had a convertible, so what the heck. Okay, no, Chris is completely right. There's a lot of complication. There's a lot of issues. They don't leak as much as people think
Yes.
they do, which we all thought.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. But let's remember that the reason a lot of these cars have sunroofs is because the big market is China, and China needs sunroofs because people smoke.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what we're getting.
Yeah. I think it's just a premium feature to have. Like, it's nice to know and to tell people that, hey, my car has a sunroof. But like in our country, I don't think it's the most practical because it gets very hot. Even if there's a cover, even if it's a moonroof with a cover, it still gets in.
Yes.
I had a test car, that had a huge moonroof, and then of course it had this cover, a cloth cover, and it was parked under the sun for the whole day. It was so hard to like cool off.
Yeah.
It took like more than the usual time.
Not
So
to work harder.
and
So
we don't usually use it, especially if you just drive in Metro Manila. You don't really use your sunroof. Maybe at the very most when you're driving to Tagaytay or like a province. Like I think that's the most like viable like use for your sunroof.
Yep. Correct. There's one thing though. Sunroofs and the proper lighting really make the occupants look good. The lighting is just better. Having said that, most people put black tint on their cars, so what's the point, right? But just
yeah.
And the addition of a sunroof actually alters the dynamics of a car.
Yes.
Because you're talking about how the frame is constructed. It does affect the handling and basically, well, at least this is what I used to know. I'm not sure if they've improved structures lately, but it, there was a time when a sunroof would actually degrade the frame's rigidity, and in
Yeah, you
turn
used to
would
have a bar there.
Yeah.
yeah,
You're right.
and in
You're
turn
right.
would affect its handling characteristics.
Yeah, you also have weight higher in the car,
Yeah,
right? And nowadays you're using increasing amounts of high tensile, low weight steel, and that's where the structure is. So yes, all of a sudden you've got, especially with like an SUV or whatever, right? You've suddenly got a significant amount of weight higher in the car than is needed. Where they're actually trying to take out as much weight as possible while still maintaining structural rigidity. Correct.
so that's that. Moving on.
Uh,
The
cigarette
next
light-
thing, the next thing that we think are unnecessary in modern cars, and I completely agree, are cigarette lighters. Now, this is something that's taken a while to phase out.
Yeah.
How many people
it's
don't even know what
taken-
that is?
It's taken so long to phase out that accessories that charge your phone uh, are factored into the cigarette lighter shape instead of using the more standard USB, which everyone uses. People are selling USB lighters, which use the 12-volt outlet into USB sockets.
Yeah.
But why not just phase out the cigarette lighter completely and just put the USB sockets? I mean, so yeah, that's a direction that I think we should be going.
It just shows me that people used to smoke a lot, huh? Back then.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously, did.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be flying in planes when people would smoke, and there's a smoking section. So
Yeah.
if you're not in the smoking
Yeah.
section, you're fine. Right.
I remember my
No.
my late dad would you know, every time we were in the car, the cigarette lighter was really used a lot.
Yeah.
There's even ashtrays, like
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Wow.
There were cars which would not
Well,
fail.
no, okay, no,
One-
I have not encountered a modern car with an ashtray.
An
At least
ashtray.
not in the past 2 years.
That's
or
a good
maybe even
point.
5
Think
years.
of it, yeah.
That's a
There
good
is-
point.
Yep.
That's
but before
right.
they were standard fare, as in front
Yeah.
and back.
The
Yeah.
car
Yeah.
I used in college, high school and college, had a cigarette lighter. And I just used it to put trash in it, like
Yeah.
candy
Your
wrapper.
receipts, coins, receipts.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really, it was
Right.
really
Well, also
cool.
they're cleaning up. They're cleaning up the console, right? You can't take out the cigarette lighter unless you replace it with wiring appropriate.
Yep.
And maybe they have to make a decision that, what if? I mean, half of our stuff now is USB-C, right? To USB-C. So maybe they're trying to head that off. But either way, yes. No, let's ditch the cigarette lighters. Let's ditch smoking, Chris.
Okay, on to the next one.
The next one
Have
is
rear fog lights.
which apparently Polly didn't know existed.
Yeah, I don't have a photo of it. Sorry.
Okay,
I remember
back of a Miata, back of an NA Miata.
I remember the last car which I at least recall had rear fog lights was the second or first gen Nissan X-Trail, I think.
Okay, I'm the one who included this, and my thoughts on it were, in particular, I was talking about the really bright rear fog lights that are high, because car companies, if you look at, for an example, a Mazda Miata NA, it has a rear fog light very low. Okay, the idea behind this is intelligent, because anything above a certain height can be blocked by fog if you are in a foggy environment. Having the light low is one way of telling a car behind you that you are there. Okay. Now they are doing less and less of that because it's more expensive to put things low. They integrate it into what are now actually much higher lights in the back of a car. But the problem there is sometimes people turn these things on and leave them on, and then it's just really blinding to the people behind you.
This one?
There we go. See, that's there. You wanna know something really interesting? Okay, when the first Mazda Miata time. When the first Miatas arrived in the Philippines, they didn't know how to wire them up. So they wired them up to the brake lights. So effectively, it was a third brake light that was
third
3
brake
inches off
light.
the ground,
Yeah.
which is not the way it's supposed to be. And actually, I had an argument about, but that's the way it came. I'm like, I don't care. It's wrong. So there. Now, nowadays, you'll have these integrated into. I do see the point if you're in Europe, because if you've ever driven through, or if you've driven through Tagaytay or whatever, it's kind of really useful to have a brighter light to tell you that there's a car there. So I'm the one who included this note, but my thoughts on it were, please don't leave them on when they're not needed, because it's very bad for the people behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my point. Here's a good one: front windshield tint.
Yeah.
Yay or nay?
For me, I don't. It reduces the visibility, especially at night. And then, well, honestly, I really think you don't need it. Well, even if we're in a warm country, it's
Yeah.
the visor type up there is okay.
Yeah.
But the full front tint for me, no.
Yeah, I can actually speak on experience from this one. I used to have a car with a heavy front tint.
Mm-hmm.
It had heavy tint all around, because exactly I was thinking, we're in a hot country. I
Yeah.
park my car in a mall. I don't want to come to it and die of of the heat.
You can always put
So-
a sunshade in front. So
Yeah, well, that's one thing, but a lot of people find that as a hassle. They're like, "Oh, I have to look for
It
it.
is.
Oh, and, I have to put it up and like fight with it and stuff like that." So,
yeah.
but it severely hampered my visibility, like you said, and it got to a point, especially when driving at night, that I would actually have to really focus extra hard on the road just to make sure that I don't hit like a chicken that I would otherwise. That I would otherwise not have a problem seeing without the heavy tint, right? So
If you hit a lot of chickens, because I mean, like that is like very far down my list of things I'd be worried about hitting.
just as an example, but I mean, yeah. So it got to a point where I was saying to myself, this is more of a hassle, like having to really focus this hard. And even when you're parking a car in a tight spot, you need to see every detail that's out there, just so you don't snag something, like something that's sticking out of somewhere. You could easily miss that with a heavy front tint. So I took it off. I left the tint that's on the top part of the windshield, like the visor part. I left that. And you know what? I honestly didn't notice that big of a difference in terms of heat that gets inside your car if you leave it out in the sun. I didn't.
Yep.
I honestly didn't. And it's so much better to drive if you have a nice clear windshield in front of you. You can see everything clearly. So yeah, definitely unnecessary in my book. It does not affect the heat absorption or the heat rejection of a car by that much. At least not in a way that I could measure.
All right, what about clear tint on the front? I'm personally still against it. I don't think there should be anything in between you and what you can see.
What's your take? I mean, some people put tint because of privacy. They want privacy.
Yeah.
Although I guess like the rear windshield and the sides can adjust that already.
Interesting that you bring that up. I'm not sure about this, but I mean, we could check. But I think it's actually illegal.
Yeah,
But
I think it's actually I think it's against the law to have heavy tint where people can't identify you. But I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure.
it was one of those things that at one point was a big deal, and then it kind of
It died down actually.
yeah, and I don't, anyway,
Yeah, I remember.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's something we can check on. I'm
What do
actually
we
not
think?
sure.
It actually doesn't exist. So okay.
But if I remember correctly, it is against the law to have your car tinted
there was
to
yes,
the
I
point
think
where they can't identify the driver. I mean, it
Yeah.
is like it's supposed to be like a safety thing, just like maybe they're worried that you'd rob a bank and you get away in a tinted car and they won't be able to spot you, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But that isn't just the Philippines. That's
Yeah.
there are a lot of countries.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There are countries where you can't have tinted face shields on motorcycles.
Yep.
There are countries where you can't. That's why if you look at cars, especially I think the European cars, they will have tint. They will have a shaded rear, but they won't have a shaded front.
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
So
anyway.
yeah, I mean that's I'm sure that it is illegal to have a heavily tinted front windshield in other countries. I'm just not sure here
Yeah,
because so many
yeah,
people are doing it. I'm not even sure if it's actually a law.
yeah. It's not enforced.
Yeah,
All right.
or it's just not enforced. Yeah.
Okay. Here's one. I never use cruise control. Paolo uses it a lot.
I love cruise control.
I
What do you
fall
use
asleep.
cruise control for?
Like when I'm in the Skyway or any expressway, or like when I'm driving at night on EDSA,
But
I
that's
just
when you
put it
should
like,
have your foot down.
But question, doesn't it reduce your alertness level? I mean, you're thinking that just leave it on cruise control.
I think cruise control in this country is more like, okay, I'm gonna take like a 1 minute breather, let my foot rest a while.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's what cruise control is here, But honestly, cruise control is designed for those long stretches of
yeah,
highways in the US and in Europe
print
where
freeway.
you could go on for hours and hours and hours of driving in empty roads,
I remember my dad when we were in San Francisco going to LA. I told him we had a rental, and I told him, "Well, you can use cruise control." He said, "No, I'm gonna get more sleepy with that." So,
I really have found myself get more sleepy with cruise control. It's just
mm,
it's kind of lowering my level of alertness.
yeah, that's what I mean. It
It
tends
does the
to
opposite for me, actually. It
really.
makes me more. It wakes me up more because I'm more paranoid. I'm like, oh
Same.
man, I can't mess up here. Like, like if
Now,
I actually miss the brake, I could like hit the
that's
car in
true.
front of
Okay.
me. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
And your foot's not where it normally is, right? So
Yeah.
if all of a
Yeah.
sudden, no, very good point.
Yeah.
There's one thing though with the cruise control is that with all these systems now being integrated, cruise control, example being the Subarus, right, and eyesight, they now integrate the safety systems through the cruise control because it's like the integration of systems for anti-skid gets integrated with traction control and stability control. It's the same thing here. These systems, cruise control used to be just very, very simple. Then it started adding following cruise control where it would slow down or disconnect if the car got close or whatever. So now that's just a progression. So on one hand, we don't use it, but I have to say that when I was testing some eyesights or when I was testing proximity control cars, I found it very useful. I would like to have the system, the safety system, without necessarily having to engage cruise control. And there are some cars that do that, like the one that nearly threw me in front window because a cat ran in front of me. So, and Paolo knows that one, right?
Yeah.
So because he's got a family of cats. So there, I would use. I find that very useful, and I think that only comes with cruise control, which makes complete sense. So,
Yeah, well,
There.
adaptive cruise control is the latest iteration of
I
cruise
love
control. And adaptive cruise control is a completely different animal for me because now not only do you not have to worry about speeding up and slowing down because the car does that automatically. It detects the car in front of you. You can set a certain distance between yourself and the car in front of you, and the car automatically speeds up and slows down depending on the car in front of you and the height and the distance that you set. So I think that's fantastic. I think that's definitely where technology is headed for the future as we get closer and closer to autonomous driving. But it's also tied to the car safety systems. Like it needs those sensors to brake automatically or to prep the brakes if the car senses that you're about to hit something or something crosses the street. Like Carl said, it's not perfect, of course, but these are the necessary steps that we need to take to get to it being perfect. So, in that sense, I think cruise control is important. The archaic version of cruise control, the older version of cruise control, where you just set a speed and let it go, I think that's unnecessary, especially on our roads where the most you get of an empty road is at maybe like 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, as opposed to the hours and hours that you get in other countries. But adaptive cruise control, I think, is very important, especially as we develop safety
Yeah.
of these cars more and more.
Okay. I think what we're seeing is it. Okay, this is and this was an example with Subaru and Subaru Eyesight. Subaru is an early adopter of a lot of these things. And sometimes when we first see it, we're like, okay, I don't see the point. But then we see it as they want to get it out there because they know what's coming next. And that's what I think we're seeing with with your example, Chris, of adaptive cruise control or whatever. There's an example that I have, and I'm gonna share it now. And I did a complete turnaround in this. I have tested adaptive. Okay, they have. This is called. What is this called? Adaptive suspension systems. Okay, and we've used these, right? And they're good because they can. You can adjust how the car handles for you. You can cue in a whole lot more comfort and so on. And I've tried what was I don't want to call it predictive in the sense because I think that's changed already. But I've tried systems in Europe where the car looks at the GPS system and kind of adjusts accordingly if it knows you're on the Autobahn on a sweeping road or something like that. Okay. Now for me, I was like, yeah, great. Not all that useful. It's fun, but I don't see the point. Then I tried this thing. And this thing was very different. And it really changed my mind. This is an adaptive, okay, what do they call it?
Ja, Voroschaft is active Warburg?
Yeah, that. Okay, I dare you say that right. Okay, it's a predictive active suspension system, right? I hope I'm not being. It's a predictive active suspension system, and what it does is it uses the cameras of the car. Yeah, I believe you. It uses the cameras of the car to adjust. It's not just adjusting the comfort level; it's adjusting. Damping speed, damping angles, whatever. And it turned out to be very, very useful, more than I expected. So I think basically what happened was it really, really mitigated bad roads. If, for example, you were going up and down a hump or an incline, like the one anyway, it would actually level the car out. Okay. So it was far more than I expected, and I went into this test thinking, okay, what's the point? I came out of it like, okay, I do see the point, and it's going to be far more useful for people than things like the high-speed handling stuff, So we really are in the middle of changes, and we got to assess appropriately. That is my example of I thought it was useless, and it turns out for the guys at that level. That's a key point, and it should trickle down, right? I mean, it's just basically just technology. Yeah. And here's a cool thing about this car. When like you're about to get hit and you kind of do this, the car does that for you. Okay, and it does it. It's using all the cameras, the 360-degree cameras that I initially said were pointless, right? I now find they're very useless. Apollo, what I have discussed, and what this thing will do is if it sees an incoming hit, it will raise that level. It will raise, let's say, the right side of the car. If the car's coming in there, that puts a little bit more metal between you and what's going to hit you. So there, it's very similar to, when they tighten up the brakes a little bit. I don't know if you see this in normal cars, if you see this in supercars and things like that. If you start driving faster, your seatbelt will get a little bit tighter. Your brakes will get slightly closer. The pads will decrease the space between the pads and the rotors. It's basically prepping for your demands of speed or safety. So there. Yeah. That's one of the things that I didn't think was useful and turns out is there. Oh, here's one.
Okay.
The watch on the Tigo 8. Useful or not? we haven't done this video, but Paolo and I, when we tested the Tigo, it came with a watch. And
What does
Paolo,
the watch do? I mean,
Paolo, what does the watch do?
Did it actually come with a watch, like a digital watch?
Yeah, it's like a Fitbit.
Or an analog watch?
No,
Digital.
digital. It's like a
Oh.
Fitbit. So it's that's the usual stuff, heart rate, steps, and stuff. But it can also start the car, open the
Wow.
windows, open the
Okay.
sunroof, uh,
Oh, that's
lock the
cool.
car, unlock the car. So
Mhm.
it's really cool. Like sometimes you have to press and hold for to start it. If you want to unlock it,
No way.
it's really cool.
We
Yeah.
we definitely all need that in all future cars
Right.
coming
Yeah.
in.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. You have that function in the key fob.
Yeah.
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 So
You
why
know,
do
it
you
just
need it on?
makes you look cool. Makes you look
Makes you
cool.
look
You're walking towards
Because
your car.
James
You're,
Bond cool.
you're at a mall parking lot. I'm just gonna do that to your watch. It's pretty cool.
come on, how cool is that?
Yeah, people are already calling me on like, why are you wearing two watches? What am I gonna do now? Right?
You know,
I need to start my car. So there. Okay. So basically, that's what we've discussed. Did we miss anything? Sunroof, cigarette lighters, yada 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 yada. Okay, we're good.
That's it.
We've been talking about what's needed in cars. You know what I found out? I found out that. Okay, I'm going to segue into something else. When we were talking early on, we were talking about what the immediate reaction of people to the car seats. Okay, and I just finished a book by, of all people, Matthew McConaughey, who I just promise you is not someone I normally read, but he's a very good speaker. And he told a story in the book about how 2 times in his life he met with people who surprised him at their level of maturity, in the sense that he made a comment that he thought was supportive, and they got mad at him saying, "Don't comment, educate." In other words, understand before anything else. You shouldn't have an opinion because you don't know enough yet. And that happened to him in Russia, and that happened to him in Africa. And these are both cultures of where they respect the wisdom of the elders and so on. So in the case, and that's a very good point to remember. In the case of this, we shouldn't be reacting just because we see a large child on a car seat. We should understand. We should pay attention. And we should just be more responsible. That's what the Toyota guy said, right? Responsibility. We should be responsible. We can't just shoot our mouths off. So there. Anyway, okay, that was a segue. Hi, Ben. You didn't expect that one. Okay, so thank you very, very much. We have talked about the things we like and we don't like. Let us know what you think. What you think is useful. People have brought up the cigarette, not the cigarette lighter, but they brought up the cruise control stuff to us before. Let us know what you think. Let us know if there are things that you like, dislike, annoy the heck out of you. Let us know. As Paulo says, in the comments below, right?
yeah.
The links are up here. The comments are. I learned that yesterday, by the way. You're going to see that in a Nutcracker video.
He was like, "What are you doing?"
I was like,
What's the
Why?
link, Paulo?
okay. So there. Okay. So thank you very, very much for joining us in our little somewhat relaxed session on stuff we like and don't like. This has been Chris and his views on child seats. This is in Paulo and his question on fog seats. This has been Gerard G, just keeping us honest on everything. This has been me, who kind of just hangs out. Thank you very, very much for joining us. We will see you next time. This has been the Cars Casually Gang. Goodbye. We are out.
Like,